Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, the gaming review show where I rate games that I have not played and score them based on the store page. I have no background in journalism. I'm just some dude that likes video games and has opinions. And today we're joined by FlamedEzra.
Hello. Thanks for
Hey,
having me.
what's up? I know you've done a little bit of stuff with YouTube. I think we'll have your link down in the video description there. Um, I think
On
you
the hiatus for a
mentioned.
while, but yeah.
Right. Even like taking a break and stuff, like it's still there, still something to check out. He's got some cool stuff there. I think you said that you've played a little bit of Palworld.
Yes, I dabbled in it just a little bit.
Okay. So, I mean, I'll be coming into this blind just from the store page and some of the social media stuff that's popped up about it, but I'm going to
Yeah.
be having a little bit like a little bit of slight experienced input coming in here, so we'll see just how close or how off I am on some of this judgment. So, this month, in order to kick things off with the new year by we're going to be honoring incomplete and ongoing hot messes. And we're looking at early access games, starting with everyone's favorite Pokemon controversy, Palworld. I see we are working with developer Palpair, Pocket Pair on this one. I can't talk right sometimes. Uh, the same studio behind Craftopia and Over Dungeon, which we've reviewed before. And they
Yeah.
do have they also have a bit more of a varied portfolio, I noticed. They have quite a variety of old and upcoming projects under their belt. So it's safe to say that they are able to do more than just make survival sandbox Pokemon with guns. I know FlamedEzra and I actually looked at Over Dungeon before, and that looked like an interesting little like card-based engine. So quite some variety on
I
that, I think.
I remember I suggested it because of the lawsuit going on, and I saw that they had another
Right.
game that was on the Switch, and I thought that was interesting. But I guess it's different because not Power World.
Right. Oh, like Over Dungeon was very mechanically and thematically unique in its in how it looked. Whereas now I know with Palworld there is that whole controversy behind it, and I don't want to hold that for it or against it too much. It definitely helped with its notoriety, but at the same time, I feel like even just on a cursory look, they do have some distinct visual design that looks very Pokemon in their creatures. But then when I actually look at the game and I look at the trailers and the screenshots, it's like it is a very different game as far as the gameplay goes.
Yeah, I would say as someone who's played a little bit, it's definitely different. It's its own thing for sure. I think it's basically, I guess you could say it's Pokemon with guns, but at the same time, it's more than just Pokemon with guns.
Right. Like
You know,
I've heard from people who have played it that a closer comparison is more like Ark Survival with
yeah,
creatures based on how the gameplay goes.
I could see that. I mean, there was something I was actually thinking about last night that I thought was kind of funny. Um, funny is the right word, but with the whole like the controversy part is like if you're gonna argue that like Power is just Pokemon with guns, then couldn't you argue that because it's actually an open world survival game, that Pokemon Pokopia is just a copy of Power World at that point? Which by that obviously it's not, but by like that reasoning, they
Right.
are two completely different games.
Right. And like I know the Pocopia, that I think that one's coming out soon too.
Yeah,
But like to say that Pal World is just Pokemon, you could then just make that argument, even though the games they look nothing alike as far as their gameplay loop, their objectives that you're set out to do. It's just kind of on the barest surface level, people make that comparison sometimes.
yeah.
But now to be completely fair, for the sake of this review, I'm basically throwing 99% of the Pokemon stuff out the window. And that's with me being a longtime fan and player of the Pokemon series. Anybody that's watching the video on YouTube, you can see my little Mantike on the other side of the screen over there.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to try and do this, but it's also gonna be difficult because
Right.
you've been playing Pokemon for as long as you have.
Now,
So
obviously, when we
I tend
discuss,
to make comparisons
yeah,
to
when
other
we talk
games
about
to
the
allow
graphics and
myself to
stuff, that
understand better.
comparison is going to come up with the creature designs.
Yeah,
But so we're going to start off with part one of the review here. We have the description to go through, which is kind of given little bullet points. They're telling us what, or they're asking us, what kind of game is this? Answer: in this game, you can peacefully live alongside mysterious creatures known as pals, or risk your life to drive off a ruthless poaching syndicate. Pals can be used to fight, or they can be made to work on farms or factories. You can even sell them or eat them. And already
Oh,
that description alone just throws the Pokemon comparison out the window.
yeah, I didn't know you could eat them. That's interesting.
Like I now I've seen some of that stuff in the meme culture that's revolved around it in like early after its release was basically you're making monster sweatshops to have them working for you in the little base building situation. Which
Just
the other side of that, like it says right there at the start of the description, um, you can live peacefully alongside them or risk your life to drive off the poaching syndicate. I almost feel like yeah, you probably could go with that cozy, like peaceful life thing, but I feel like the poaching syndicate sounds like the main core of the game's storyline. So if you go purely peaceful, like how much of the game are you missing out on if you go that route?
that's a good question, and I don't have an answer.
That's fair. But from the description alone, like it seems to be like a little bit of a disconnect there. Like you have a very action driven game, but you want to try and pitch this cozy vibe. Although some of the trailers do seem to add to the cozy vibe a little bit. Maybe there's like it's kind of a balancing act where some days you log in and you just want to be cozy. Other days you're like, okay, now I want some action, run and gun, survival shenanigans going on. They're telling us in a harsh environment where food is scarce and vicious poachers roam, danger waits around every corner to survive. You must tread carefully and make difficult choices, even if that means eating your own pals when the time comes. So that's a little bit darker than I would think.
Yeah,
Like to the point of, needing a food source and then having to deal with that. Like, are at that point, are you making the choice to eat your long-term pals, or are you just catching a bunch of low-level stuff just to feed your stronger beasts? Like, a classic prey and predator situation.
I don't know, but based on the phrasing there, it kind of implies that it has to be something you've caught. So the ideal way would probably be to just catch low level stuff and eat them. I
Right.
would guess. Like
Like
so you can just go hunt them down and eat them,
it's
which honestly
worded
makes it so much worse.
it's worded like you're making a hard choice, but mechanically with a game, I feel like it would be the latter, where it's not like you're making a choice of, you're making a choice between letting your pet snake starve or letting your pet rats live, but rather you have rats specifically to feed the snake.
Yeah, that's fair. Or maybe I mean I never really, like I said, I haven't played it too much, but I didn't even know that you could eat the pals in this game. So I feel
Right.
like at that point it's just like it's not even like an actual choice. It's literally not like a difficult choice, but like an opportunity to give to the weird players, like The Sims
Right.
without the ladder in the pool. It's like you can
Oh
do
my
this. You probably shouldn't, but you totally
god.
could.
Also fair. Although maybe it's also like a disposal mechanism. Like now again, I know I keep saying that I want to not do too much of the Pokemon comparison, but this is just so in Pokemon or other monster games, you can release your monsters. So maybe
Yeah.
feeding one monster to another is basically just mechanically how like one way to dispose of things you don't want. Because every
Or
monster
maybe it's just an
collector is going to have.
environmental thing we're overlooking, or we're looking too much into this. Like maybe it's literally like just part of the natural chain in the world, and it just gives you the option to also be on that food chain
Yeah, fair.
and
That
choose to.
there's something there. So let's see. Moving down, we've got mounts and exploration. Now they do show a lot of the trailers where you are riding on different things. Pals can be mounted to traverse the land, sea, and sky, allowing you to traverse all kinds of environment as you explore the world. Now, mechanically speaking, it's like okay, mounts are kind of cool and all, but visually, like being able to ride that much variety of different creatures, it's just a cool idea. And sometimes that's all
Yeah,
you
it is.
need is to it. If something is cool, there's like the rule of cool where if it's fun, throw it in as long as it doesn't like break the game or break the experience.
Yeah.
So that like that it's like the kind of thing that I could live without it in a game. I live without it in a lot of games, but having it as an option for faster travel is just kind of cool. Let's see, building structures. You want to build a pyramid, put an army of pals on the job, and don't worry, there are no labor laws for pals. Oh my gosh.
That's quite the statement. Like,
They are not
especially coming from,
beating they're not beating
they're
the
not beating
monster
around the bush.
sweatshop. Yeah, they are not beating the allegations of the monster sweatshop.
They're going right to the point.
Going also with make the use of pals and their skills to make fire, generate electricity, or mine ore so that you can live a life of comfort. This got like darkly capitalistic colonizer vibe like very quickly. Although I will say like not nothing on social commentary. The fact that like they basically they make 100 plus different creatures with different abilities and powers, having some different ways to use those powers to advance the gameplay outside of just combat. It's a cool idea, even if it has like this weird dystopian feel to it. But I will say, at least, as a video game, it's like, okay, it's a video game, it's fiction. Hopefully, this isn't reflective of people's real life fantasies. And, sometimes it's just kind of feeding that gamer power fantasy.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna be AFK for a while actually at this point because Sheldon just got sick all over the floor, so I gotta clean
Oh,
it.
okay. Oh yeah, take care of that. Um,
Yeah.
but going down the description, we've got some pals are good at planting seeds while others are skilled at watering or harvesting crops. Okay, feeding back into that whole labor aspect. Working together with your pals to create an idyllic farmstead. And they do show a little bit of a warmer vibe with the visuals of this, like the creatures. Now, they do show graphically each one of these bullet points here. The building one almost looks like a steel mill sweatshop kind of situation. Um, they did say that they don't have labor laws, but hopefully, maybe they can get a little bit of union representation. The farm one looks a little cozier with basically, you got your water type watering the crops alongside the player character too. They got their own watering can hitting the other half of the field. Letting pals do the work is the key to automation. Build a factory, place a pal in it, and they will keep working as long as they're fed until they're dead, that is. Oh, well. Again, back to those sweatshop allegations. Hopefully some players, maybe find a good balance where they take the health and well-being of their factory laborers into account. Otherwise, you probably got to go and find replacements for the ones that keel over. They go on to boast after all of that, after all the sweatshop and after all the day labor camp situation, they move on to dungeon exploration. Now we're getting into some more traditional gameplay. With pals on your side, you can tackle even the most dangerous areas. When the time comes, you might have to sacrifice one to save your skin. They will protect your life even if it costs their own. So again, still a little on the dark side, but I
Yeah.
at least on this one, it's like, okay, this was a combat situation where you are making that hard choice. It's like the whole classic, Super Mario World where you're riding on Yoshi and you're using Yoshi as a double jump. Where it's like,
That's the
okay,
reference to
it
English.
maybe it's like that last minute, that last ditch effort. They do have breeding as a part of the game. Of course, these monster raisers do often have breeding as a component. Breed a pal and it will inherit the characteristics of its parents. Combine rare pals to create the strongest pal of them all with something that looks like a giant llama Christmas ornament as its visual representation. I wonder if that's supposed to be the strongest one or if it's supposed to be one of the eggs in front of it. But I wonder with that regard if the breeding is like static, where once like you put two species together and it always gets a specific species, or if there's some kind of subspecies or chance at a rare hatch. Like I think the Dragon Quest Monster series would frame it where you put things together of two different families and the offspring depends on the family pairing as opposed to like specifically breeding slime with a Draki to get another slime. Instead, you would get like a different type of slime or a different type of beast creature. Poaching and crime. The endangered pals live in wildlife sanctuaries. Sneak in and capture rare pals to get rich quick. It's not a crime if you don't get caught after all. Wait a minute. I thought the main story was about fighting against a poacher syndicate.
I don't know.
Um,
I'm also gonna have to hop out after all. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. We'll be catching you later. Hey, thanks for joining us. I
Yeah,
do hope let I know we'll have the video up later so you can check out what we got for the
I'll check
rest of
out the
it.
rest of the review. Yeah.
Alrighty. Let's see. So going down, we've got the multiplayer. Multiplayer is supported, so invite a friend to go on an adventure together. And of course, you can battle your friends and trade pals too. So hey, multiplayer might kind of be an afterthought with this kind of thing. But at the very least, now, I don't know if it is necessarily an afterthought. I think multiplayer might have been a core component, but as far as the trading and battling, I don't know how well the balancing is for that. I know, like, in the early, again, the Pokemon comparison, the earliest days in Pokemon, it was kind of a driving force of fostering local communities with the link cable. Nowadays with online gaming it's a lot easier to get connected with other people, but I don't, now with the way the game looks, I don't know how well the balancing would be to battle PvP. But at the very least, like, things don't always have to be balanced to be enjoyable. Like maybe there's some kind of equalizer in there, or you just kind of set up your own agreement and parameters when you're doing that kind of thing. In online co-op play, up to 4 players can play together, and a dedicated server can allow up to 32 players to play together. So that's kind of a cool thing. Like having a more varied gameplay in a world, maybe tackling like world raid bosses could be a cool aspect of that if that's something that they go into. So the description gives us quite a bit in both text and visual representation for kind of what to expect with the game. Some of which has some mixed feelings for me. Like I feel like they're describing the game pretty well, but I don't know that it necessarily sells the game. So, part two, moving on, we have a mess of screenshots. We've got sheep with guns. We have the factory situation that we saw in some of the visuals for the descriptions. We do see a lot of mount situations. We got flying mounts of various sorts. Of course, now the creatures, like this thing looks like a combination of Salamence and Latios. I'm sorry, but there's going to be Pokemon comparisons when we look at the actual creature designs. We have Mamorest. That one, okay, maybe a little bit more of a unique design there. I mean, it's an elephant. There's so many ways you can only so many ways you can depict an elephant before it starts to feel a little, that when they're all based off the same base, the same original concept. I'm not going to weigh that too heavily against things, but it's also listed as King of the Forest, and the screenshot does show us quite a bit of interface here. We see health bars, we see creatures with button inputs to move. Let's see, left bumper probably to bring it out or recall it. Left and right arrow keys, which these similar kind of monster controls I've seen in Pokemon Legends, both Arceus and ZA, when you're doing that overworld stuff. Because of course you do need to access your monsters on the fly. You don't have time to be going into menus all the time. It shows us your typical FPS or third-person shooter loadout here with your gun, your pal spheres. So your player interactions. A little bit of a directional thing. It shows you what direction you're facing. That's pretty cool. And then it's showing some markers with 62 meters and 286 meters. So apparently it looks like the player has marked a couple of points on the map and you are being pointed to those locations with your little heads up display. So it gives you a lot to go on here as far as seeing what options you have in the gameplay. That's pretty cool. We got cinematic screenshots here of some of the side characters. Of giant Gorochu with a Gatling gun for one. We got Puff the Magic Dragonite and a. Okay, that's it looks like a rocket launcher, but there's a penguin sticking out of the nozzle. So apparently your pals are also ammunition. It's not just, the player has guns. You actually it looks like you can actually launch pals at their enemies. There's some cozy campfire and crafting station setup that we see here. So we are seeing quite a bit. Oh, we have some multiplayer adventuring going on. Everybody's got their land mounts with different land mounts. It is kind of cool how you can see how many different things there are to ride. We have the now I get it's supposed to be like that Egyptian jackal motif, but okay, you know what? I was gonna make the Lucario joke here, but then remembering that there is the Egyptian jackal god as a design core, I could see the argument that they base the design on that, which also just so happens to look like Lucario. It does have some aspects to it that are unique to its own design that seem to lean more heavily into that Egyptian design inspiration. Um, Considering Lucario also just happens to look like that. Like, how many players out there, how many Pokemon players out there nicknamed their Lucario Anubis specifically because of its visual design? So I'm gonna go ahead and give a pass to that one. But Gorochu still looks like some Raichu evolution. We got level 20 War Sect coming out here. Oh, wow. And you're fighting it with level 13s. That's kind of weird. Unyielding Colossus War Sect. That might be one of those other things. The screenshots do show us quite a bit. We have these enemy rival characters that I would presume are the Poaching Syndicate. We got this little grass monkey with an AK. Okay, wild. We got more like some cute derpy looking creatures. So the creatures do have a variety to them. Okay, but do you have to show us the creatures in these screenshots that look like they're crying? We got more of the multiplayer adventuring aspect going in the screenshots. We've got more assembly line factory work going on. We got that King Llama all over again as King Paka. Okay, not King Llama, King Alpaca. I'm sorry, I mislabeled that animal earlier. Supreme, and it's called the Supreme Fluff Commander. You know what? Bonus points for Supreme Fluff Commander. I don't think there's topping that. We do have some oh wow, flying mount with one of the presumably villain characters. I mean, the character does kind of look like a bit of a poacher out there. Riding on a winged beast. I think Phoenix had mentioned earlier to me in discussion that some of it looked kind of like the Wind Waker bird. I could also see like a Corviknight situation, but at the same time, it's a bird. It's an armored bird. Again, those visual designs are going to be like, okay, some things might look similar just because we've seen things before, but that doesn't inherently mean that it is a ripoff. Although I'm not saying that Palworld doesn't have things that could very much be ripoffs. I'm just saying that not everything that looks similar is a ripoff. We got some beautiful landscape shots here showing the environments, the different kinds of visual aspect. We got this is the kind of thing, if you like, even if you remove these creatures from it, like this could just be a nice wall mural in a room or something. A really nice design. We got more cybernetic beasts out here, so we do have a lot of variety to the creatures as far as having nature and mechanical looks to them. And it really does lean into the whole fantasy aspect. We got this base building going on here with what looks like some Japanese shrine. A golden we got a Goliath beetle out here for one of the creatures. Again, very classic traditional kind of design creature aspect. We got these lovely little ferrets in different colors. Now I wonder if that's like if they are different species or if it's just a gender difference or subspecies or something like that. So we do see with the screenshots giving us a lot of characters, a lot of variety, a lot of cool things with them. And is she sharing sake with the thing? Okay, that's kind of cool. We have now one of the trailers did showcase this as well, the oil rig as a stronghold. So now the trailers do also showcase quite a bit when it comes to specifically the design aspect. And we're going to go ahead and do that in part 3 of our review here, running through the trailers. Now we have to ask ourselves the questions. Are the trailers representing the gameplay well enough? Or do they show more pre-rendered cutscenes? Do they show us something to expect? The first one here, I kind of question having this as the first trailer. Like, yes, it's filled with action. It looks like good snapshots of the gameplay, but what it is they're advertising a collaboration of Palworld and Ultra Kill, which is an entirely separate game, another early access game from a different studio, where they're apparently collaborating to cross promote here. But it looks like you get to play as the Ultra Kill robot in Palworld, along with this Home Sweet Home content pack that seems to add more to decoration and base building. The second trailer is what looks like an actual trailer for the core game itself. Honestly, I think this one should have been first. And it gives us a cinematic flyover of the situation, shows us the characters and all of that good stuff, and gives a very I think this one is a much more accurate look of what to expect from the core game itself. It shows the firefights, the creatures, the combat, the homesteading, character creation. It shows the rivals, shows a snapshot of the multiplayer. A lot to go on there. The third trailer, now we're just going to kind of let these things play on flyby. The third trailer is another look at Ultra Kill and Home Sweet Home, which shows about as much as the first one. Honestly, they could just drop that one and you wouldn't really lose anything. And I have to ask, what is up with the pixelation censorship in one of the clips? It's a little weird. Though this trailer does wrap up with what I must assume is just the full release confirmation for this year. The third trailer is kind of given that whole look of a 1.0 release, which again, I'm assuming is the final version of the game. Not to say that it won't have updates after that. Games like this do very much give the vibe that they want to have a very long running project going on for years on end so that players can keep coming back to it to enjoy content. The fourth and fifth trailer show Terraria crossover. Now, I didn't even know that this was a thing that had happened. Apparently, an update came out where they added the boss fights and some of the music and environments from Terraria into the game, which is a very cool crossover. Getting that kind of indie crossover development in there. The second of these Terraria trailers is it's not even a gameplay showcase. It's showing the it shows like a 2D animated cutscene like you would see as a promo for an animated series. And honestly, that kind of thing, I would sit down and watch that series. It looks well produced. It looks like they have a good vibe to it. I would watch that show. Um, as for the actual gameplay of it, looks like they basically, it's more of the same. You get Terraria creatures. They even show you petting the Eye of Cthulhu of all things. So, Terraria creatures as pals that you can actually befriend and have on your team and on your base. If that's the aspect that they're going with, that's actually kind of cool. The sixth trailer is a crossplay update trailer. So I'm assuming that means that console and PC at one point were not able to play together, but a crossplay update is, insinuating that is a possibility in there. And it shows a bit of a world boss fight there where a boss seems to invade a player's encampment and the player is rescued by other things, by other players. Next up, there's two. So the seventh and eighth trailers on there are a gameplay and a cinematic trailer for the Faybreak update, which promises new characters, new creatures, new storylines. So there's some cool aspects to that, and I do like that the Faybreak stuff. The way they're shown there, they do show creatures that look more unique in their designs. Again, going back to how Palworld was received and viewed as this Pokemon knockoff based solely on the creature designs. Um, I do like that the updates do seem to be adding more unique creatures to the game, uh, giving it like more of its own feel, maybe to kind of push away from those allegations of being a ripoff. Um, and of course, content updates are always good. And the fact that something like that is revealed, something that I would expect to be an expansion to the game, is instead a part of an update that predates the full release of the game, is a pretty incredible thing in its own right. Something that honestly maybe could have waited until after the full release to be even a paid update, but no, they're including it in the core game. Then the ninth and final one is the Sakurajima update trailer, which boasts more new environments, creatures, buildings, and even game modes, it sounds like, with a whole extra mess of unique looking creatures with a Japan inspired aesthetic. So, a lot of cool stuff with that. Now, overall, I think the trailers are a bit out of order. I think it would have been better to start with the first trailer being the base game instead of the Ultra Kill collaboration. But the way that the trailers are ordered on here, it shows the Ultra Kill collaboration, the core trailer, and then another trailer of the Ultra Kill collaboration. When I think a better angle would have been to start with the first trailer of the game and then have the trailers listed in chronological order of their release. So you would see the core game trailer, then the Ultra Kill, or actually the Ultra Kill one would have been the last. Like the Ultra Kill reveal and the Ultra Kill gameplay trailer would have been the last ones, since those seem to be the most recent update. Put everything else before those, like so that you can see the progression of content over that time. At least that's my personal opinion for how they could have maybe handled that better. Now, part 4 of the game, we need to get into the game analysis. The graphics, generally decent graphics as shown. I don't really have much in the way of notes to show there. You can tell what's what. The environments are vibrant and clear. You get a lot of different kinds of localities to work with. The creatures are pretty varied. Like I said, a lot of them do look very Pokemon like, where you look at them and say, "Oh, that's just XYZ Pokemon." Like some of this here, that freaking looked like Gardevoir on the screen. Anybody that was saying that a thing looked like a bluer Gardevoir almost. Now, again, people who have played Pokemon for a long time are probably going to draw those comparisons. I don't know that it's necessarily the most fair comparison though. Some creatures do look like straight up complete Pokemon knockoffs. Other ones, it's like, okay, I can see where the comparison is drawn, but it could also be argued that they drew from the same source material of inspiration. Now, that's also to be noted that the update trailers seem to show more diverse and more unique designs to them. For example, like the Terraria one here, obviously these things are going to be derivative of Terraria, but that's because you know that that collaboration is there. That was the point of that. But then other ones like the Sakurajima update looked a lot more unique in its designs. The music definitely gives us an air of action adventure gameplay, which it feels good. The music is kind of uplifting, I will say. It doesn't really feed into the kind of depressing, like dystopian vibes that some of the game description gives. They really seem to want the music to showcase the sense of adventure in the games, and I do appreciate that. In fact, the soundtrack for the game only $6, which is a cool value, I think, for the soundtrack. Now, the gameplay is where we hit some of the biggest differences here. It does look like run and gun action, although the trailers don't really give me too much impression on what controlling your pals looks like, whether you use direct commands or if they operate on a kind of AI attack pattern based on the situation. Direct commands like you see in Pokemon Legends ZA might get very difficult when you are also trying to actively participate in the firefight with your own weaponry. Um, but at the same time, I know AI algorithms or attack patterns for them, how much setup and tweaking you have to do in their menus, which again, that is something that we don't see a lot of. We see the character creation, but we don't really see the game menus. We see a little bit of the building interface just in tiny snapshots, but not really much to go on. Uh, I would like to see just a single screenshot of your inventory management, your Mon's status screens, the PAL stat screens, so that you can kind of get an idea of what you're looking at there. If they just showed one of those on the store page, I think I'd feel a little better about what direction I'd be going with them. Because in games like this, even though it's action driven, the creatures are still going to have stats outside of just their visual appearance. Again, the UI and menus, exactly what I just said. The very little is shown for that. Now, down to the pricing. We do have a game that is $30 at full price. At the time of this recording, and at the time of this upload, it is on sale for 25% off, so $22.49. That's a pretty good value for this. But of course, if you are watching this after release, it says offer ends January 5th, so the sale isn't very long from the time of this video. I would have done this last month for sale month, but then I'm like, you know what? It's also an early access game. We're going to start January with this. The pricing, $30. I feel like the amount of content that you have for this game, I feel like it's worth that $30. They do seem to offer quite a bit, especially getting to play with other people. With this kind of thing, there's going to be online communities where you can find people. You can probably always find some friends that also have the game. Um, I don't know that I would pay the $30 for it, but like most of these reviews go, anybody that's seen these videos knows that I'm probably going to say my hesitance to buy it at $30 has to do more with my own time and my own budget, but I do see there being value here, especially because the developers have continued releasing updates and content to the game this whole time since its release. It came out in January of 2024. So, it's been out almost 2 years by the time you're watching this video, maybe more than 2 years by that point. They've kept the development going. And the latest trailers are showing that they plan the 1.0 full release this year of 2026. So the $30 does seem like a fair price here for the amount of content that is already on the books and for the amount of work that they have kept going with the game. There are bundles available with Ultra Kill, with Necess, Craftopia, Dead Take, Core Keeper, or a bundle with the soundtrack. You can get the soundtrack at a little bit of an extra discount. So there are a lot of other like little packages you can get with this for a little discount. Although I don't know if those games are on sale because it shows that Palworld is on sale for the 25% off, but then the bundle is like 10% off of the combined price. So I don't know if the other game is really being discounted or if they're just kind of shoehorning it in to try and get the extra sale. But at the very least, I do see $30 being a worthwhile price for this, considering that the developers have been active. They the last notice for this actually just came out last month with the Ultra Kill collaboration. They have from December 16th the Home Sweet Home and Ultra Kill stuff. So they are very very active in communicating with their community, with their players, and I do appreciate that. I even do remember notes coming out from Pocket Pair where they had said that they do not mind that their active player base kind of falls off as people finish the amount of content so that those players can go and play other things. They know that players who really like the game are going to come back when new content becomes available. So it is telling me that Pocket Pair as a development studio also respects their player base with their time and their attention. And they're not expecting nonstop loyalty towards their game individually. They want people to play for fun, and they want people to enjoy this world that they've created. So Pocket Pair, they get a little bonuses for that as far as like their PR goes. Now, my personal score for this, I feel like because I'm rating this, a large chunk of this rating is based on the store page, not only the game itself. The game looks competent. It looks like they do quite a bit to give you something to enjoy. Whether you like the cozy aspect, whether you like the action aspect, the multiplayer, maybe just try some single player stuff. It looks like they give you plenty to go with in your own right. You don't have to engage with every single aspect of the game at all times. That said, I do feel like they might be overselling the cozy side of the game by making that like one of the first things that they mention in the description, when so much of the game seems to be more about monster hunting and base building in order to kind of create this automated engine of resource management. At least that's the vibe that the game is giving, along with being a creature collector. I'm wondering if there might be just a little too much variety to it, where I could understand if the game has criticism of trying to do too much. Although at the same time, a game having that many different things to do could very much be what some people are looking for. Where a game, especially a game that you might spend $30 on, you don't want to be shoehorned into one singular mode of gameplay at all times. Especially when the trailers did boast that they have new multiplayer modes, arenas, different things that you can enjoy, maybe some kind of PvP balancing in the line of things. And the fact that they have these collaborations with Ultra Kill and Terraria does kind of give the idea that they're probably going to have other IP collaborations in the future. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing remains to be seen, and is probably also just going to be a matter of opinion for players. Some people like these crossover things that kind of expand the universe, lets the developers cross promote different things with different other creators. And honestly, I think that's kind of a cool aspect in itself. So all of that weighing in for my score, I think I'm giving Palworld a mostly positive rating of 7 out of 10. Now, when it comes to Nintendo lawsuits and stuff, I'm not taking that into consideration. That has to do with other studios trying to shoehorn in things that, quite frankly, should just be left to the market, left for the players to decide, left for people to work with, because you can't own monster hunting, you can't own monster collecting like as a game itself. There's so many monster collectors out there that monster collectors in general really have to do something unique to stand out. And I think Palworld does an excellent job of being a monster collecting game that is very different from other monster collectors, in that you, the player, are an active participant in the fights, and that there's more than just raising and leveling up your monsters to the game. They give you different ways to use the monster's abilities, but at the same time, there is still a little bit of a question of, now, it being an open world game, it's not a bad thing, but being open world is also not inherently a good thing. It says that there is a fight against a poaching syndicate, but they don't really go into much detail about the story. Now, too much detail about the story can be a negative thing about a game if they expose too much of the mystery and air of discovering that storyline. But at the same time, the trailers and the screenshots put so much focus on just the creatures and the players themselves that I'm not seeing I'm not seeing very much that's drawing me towards that smuggling or that poaching storyline, especially when the description for the game does say that you are able to poach in preservations yourself. So it's kind of like, are you really the good guy in the game? but at the same time, there's also that mixed bag of, you don't always want to be the good guy when you're playing the game. Sometimes you want to try out different things and try out like, hey, what if I play the villain kind of role? But even then, I can't be too certain about how that is. They don't showcase very much of storyline at this. It's all creature interactions with small snippets of the syndicate's characters. So again, I'm giving this 7 out of 10. It's not terribly negative, but I'm not exactly enticed to go and buy it for $30 or even for $22 on my own time and budget. But at the same time, I don't want to deride this game for what it does and for what it is showcasing here. It looks like it is offering quite a bit to players that want this kind of game, who want this action paced experience with base building and hunting monsters and boss battles out in the world with maybe some multiplayer elements to it. And honestly, the multiplayer is one of the things that would actually drive me into this game, being able to play it with other people. If it wasn't for that, I would probably completely pass it over. But being able to experience this with people and have that social engagement is what would actually get me to spend even close to the $30 on this game. But that's just me personally. If it goes on a huge significant sale, there's a chance that I may pick this up in the future and give it at least a little bit of a look. I don't think I would want to invest too much time into it because this is the kind of game where I could spend hours and hours and hours at like weeks on end into the game just trying to figure it out and optimize and figure out what parts of the game I like most and be like, you know what, let me go ahead and see about optimizing that the way that I have done like with Stardew or with Pokemon, where those games I have spent more time with. And again, not to make the comparison with the game, but it does seem like that kind of game that could just take up a lot of your time and attention, even though the developers have said that, they want you to be able to play and enjoy other games and not be solely engrossed in their game. But it is still the kind of game that I could see myself getting lost in for extended periods of time. So, with that, a pretty positive look. I do have some other games to look at for early access. I am still taking some recommendations to decide what game I go in for. I got a few options out there, but of course, if anybody else has recommendations for early access games that we haven't played before, by all means, drop some suggestions in the comments. If you guys think that I may or may not have been entirely fair to Palworld, let me know. Um, Again, I say it continuously when I do these videos. These are opinions. These are my own thoughts based on the store page. I fully welcome constructive feedback and respectful opinions that, might be saying, hey, I'm full of shit. I have no idea what I'm talking about, which to be fair, I have not played these games. I don't play any of the games. I don't even have them on any console or anything when I do the review. So that said, by all means, leave your feedback down below, suggestions for other early access games or other games that are coming out this year or that have been out for a long time that we might want to look at for the series. And also, a happy 2026 and new year to everybody. Let us have a wonderful year of looking at some amazing games and some trash games.